for my effects, I can start out and looking at this UI here. Here I can enable or disable any effects I want. Just can't do Gaussian blur depth field at the same time. So, and the way these are applied is in a ranking system. So in the constructors of all these classes, they pass in a rank to the base class, and this my post effect stack ranks them. That's the order in which they're applied. So let me go through these one by one. I'll start with Gaussian blur. Parameters here are standard deviation. This is the weight, how much neighboring pixels affect this. So low value, it's most center pixels affect the blur, so there's less blurring. Higher values, pretty much things even spread out, but this kind of stops working past the threshold, so about 10 or something. Kernel size, obviously, bigger convolution, more blurring. Blur iterations, this applies a bit more blur. And downsampling is also applies a very big blur because it scales this texture down, then it upsamples it back with bilinear filtering. The depth of field I have as well. The parameters for this guy are also this parameters for the bloom blur here as well. So, and this focus distance is the distance for the objects being focused based off of the focus plane. So here these are in focus, everything is out of focus in front and in the background. Aperture size kind of scales this exponential focus power. It doesn't have much impact past 1. And focus power defines the area of this focus plane. So as you can see here, if I bring this closer to me, if I increase this now, this focus plane gets larger. So my edges are depth edges on linear depth using 2 Sobel filters in a vertical horizontal, then it computes standard deviation, and it uses that value as edge to apply it as a additive blending. These ones are impact the output texture. So here I can just edge strength as a parameter, color, but so here's bloom. This does a bright pass first, then it blurs this bright pass. The bright pass parameters are there's this intensity. This basically just scales the color if it passes the bright test, which just detects which pixels can be bright, and which pixels can be bright is based off this luminosity vector. If I increase this, it lets more pixel through. If I increase this, it will also possibly increase more pixels, but red you want to keep very low. Same with blur, and green is you want to keep pretty high because this is the these are kind of values for which our eyes are more attuned to. So these are, and then you can also blur it more here. Also as a blur as well, so this just increases the bloom. Lens flare. So this is as I stare at the direction where the sun is located, I get these flares around it. And but the sun is here, but it's being occluded by a tree, so I use a compute shader to compute an occlusion factor, and I basically I scale the flares color by this, so it removes the additive blending based off how much they're occluded. So I can kind of move these around a bit based on some parameters. So if the sun changes the sun position and screen space here. So here's light shafts. This is light rays shine. This is most visible when you get occluded objects like here. See the light passes through this. This kind of uses screen space ray tracing to compute an occlusion texture and kind of warp it in the direction of the texture is facing the sun. Many parameters here is obviously the sun values here. You can scale the sun, kind of make it bigger. And these are the shader parameters. Density is basically how big the steps are, so decrease this, get smaller step, I'll keep it pretty big. Weight is how much the color impacts it, every color step, so maybe it's pretty low as well. Decay, we're just going to keep it 1. Exposure is the final scalar for the color, I'm going to keep this pretty low as well. So you can get kind of very cool effect here. You get motion blur. This is camera motion blur. This is done by reconstructing screen space roll position for the previous frame and moving it into screen space and subtracting from the current coordinate, and then creating kind of like a direction vector, and then taking samples along it to blur it in that specific direction. So the parameters here are just a speed parameter. Just kind of increase the step size. So, but also because you're not taking more samples, it gets kind of ugly warpage. So I'd recommend pretty low parameter. 2 is pretty good to me. Last one I have is Vignette. So this kind of creates a fading in towards black. This just uses the texture length in DC space and kind of warps it and inverts it. So you kind of get a very small here, and then if you want just like very soft edges, you kind of do this, and then very small strength, you get a kind of interesting looking fading in towards the edges here. It's kind of an overview of all my effects.